Welcome back, listeners, to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that we get to do bi-weekly together. And I'm so glad that you are in here with us now for going on nearly 3 years now. We're going on November 1st, will be year 3. And I'm not sure if this episode's coming out before November 1st or post November 1st. If it's post November 1st, welcome to season 4. If not, then you're on season 3 still, and season 4 is coming up soon. And there will be an episode on November 1st if you want to either A, go back and listen to it, or B, it's coming up soon, actually, where I'm going to talk about the art of talking about questions and asking individuals. So I'm not sure who's going to be the host yet. I'm still working on that one. But that's going to be something cool for our 3-year anniversary episode. But before we can kind of go into our episode, we all know that we have my mom's lovely quote of the day. This time, I haven't actually gone through and figured out a range of a couple of them yet to pick from, so this one will be surprising for me what I actually wind up choosing. So, Mom, take it away.
But what if I never get there? Asked the fox. A small step is still a step, replied the moon. But do just what you can today and be proud of yourself. Jason Oliver.
Thank you, Mom, for the quote. Hopefully this will be the right fit for the episode as we go through. I'm sure I've got 20, 30 to pick from, and I have a couple already in mind, and so we'll see where that kind of goes in place. A little bit of peeking behind the curtain, y'all, just to kind of know that a lot of these episodes, I have some in mind. Sometimes I kind of just pull off from the hat of whatever's out there for it. So to give you a little bit of a background about what we're talking about today. We're talking about how you can handle loss and to be able to kind of go through the grieving process without having to actually go through the big pharmacy kind of way that a lot of people think that they need to whenever losing a loved one or going through tough situations in life here. And so with that, I have my friend Heather. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad that we actually were able to make this work. We've had to kind of like juggle things in life, but that isn't that life in general that you have to sometimes juggle to make things work.
That is the truth.
So how exactly do we know each other?
So I believe we met in middle school. I think 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah, 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we were in band and I complimented you on your hair.
My lovely, long, luscious locks.
Yep. And I don't think we really became closer friends until 9th grade, though, because in marching band, everything gets pretty crazy because you're thrown to doing the away camps, the home camps. God, what else do we do? The competitions, all the football games. It just gets really
After school
wild.
practices, and then just hanging out in the band room in the morning and trying to, as a band kid, you just latch onto each other and you have to.
I think I straightened her hair a couple of times too.
Yeah, you straightened it and you did putting it in braids and stuff like that as well to be able to get into Shakos and everything.
Yep,
Oh yeah, totally.
I remember having to help you with that. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And then I would go to your band concerts.
Good old paper trails.
Concerts, your rock shows.
Yeah, good old paper trails.
Yep. I think I still have the shirt that you made for me.
Oh yeah,
with the spray paint.
I think I've made 3 or 4 for different people over the years. I think you have 2 or 3 maybe. You have one survivor.
Yeah, one survivor over all these moves. Yeah.
If you got at some point, take a picture and I want to see it.
I will. Yeah. It's packed up somewhere, I'm sure, in the abyss. But yeah.
Over the years of painting and putting them in place, I sometimes forget what I did and what I made. So I always like whenever someone finds one, it's like a fun little treasure trove.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I love that shirt. I wore the heck out of it. So
that means it's good and been loved.
Mm-hmm.
So give us a little bit about who Heather is. Who is Heather?
So I am 34 years old and I am a mom of 7. I have 4 biological sons and then I have 3 bonus daughters. And my husband and I are like the Brady Bunch in real life. So we're just big, happy family, lots of love. I wish I could afford a nanny, but we don't have that. There's no Alice here. I work full time and I do water testing for a living, specifically non-potable water. And I'm in school for my master's degree in environmental health and safety. I'm about halfway done. And I was born and raised here in Jasper. I lived in Florida for a couple of years and then came back, but I really love it here. The foothills of the Appalachians are beautiful.
Yes, they are.
And it's just, I'm still, we have the mountains all around us and it still takes my breath away when I drive like anywhere, to go to work or the grocery store. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're so blessed to be here.
Yeah,
So,
I'm gonna have to make a ride back up here on my bike just to go through the little trails here. This is nice,
yeah.
beautiful little space, and I love where you have built up here. Ugh, it's so nice.
Thank
It's away
you.
from everything. It's quiet. It's a
Yes.
nice
Yeah.
thing. You got a lot of little nice little farms around you too.
Yeah, we're getting started on the homestead bandwagon. We've got some chickens and we'll be getting some sheep soon. Yes, we're
What?
getting into dairy sheep. For one, they're less rough on the environment, but they're also easier to keep alive than cows. So, like with cows, if they eat grass that's too fresh or green, like then they get bloated and they just you find them killed over in the field. So, and from what I understand, sheep are a little more hardy than the cows are. So,
Yeah, the meat art is definitely drastically different for sure.
oh
Grew up on the
yes,
meat farm because I'm sure you've been up to Freeham and seen some of our meat cattle over the years.
yes, I
So,
have.
so definitely getting. I've never done much with sheep, so I'll have to do a little bit
Yeah.
more research on that.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep. And they're dual purpose. So they're meat, dairy, and wool. So you get all three. And if you have enough of the wool producing, you can sell it for house insulation. Like it'd be modified slightly instead
You can
of
do for
having to use
insulation
fiberglass.
stuff.
Yes. Yep.
Huh.
So that's kind of where we're going to venture into.
Nice. I love that.
Mhm.
Multi-purpose here.
Yep.
So there's tons of around grief. We hear things every single day that people like to be able to people write books on, people do movies on, people do all kinds of different like articles and things on. Are there any misconceptions that you want to address dealing with loss, grief, and how society addresses this topic?
I don't like how the US deals with death. We act as if it's not part of life and if as if it's not something that's existed forever and ever. And one example of this is in hospitals, right? So if somebody is terminally ill and is suffering greatly, the argument is, okay, well, we need to do everything we can to keep this person alive, right?
Yeah.
Well, even if they don't want to be here anymore,
Hmm.
the doctors, that's part of what they do. Like they have to take an oath of preserving life. And it's like, at what point is it like you need to just let them go, you know?
Yeah. What part is too long?
Right, right. And I mean, I'm not saying that we need to have I'm not going to argue for or against human, euthanasia because I know that's a touchy subject. It's just that we tend to hide death or dying away in nursing homes or in hospitals where we don't have to see it. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to look at it. It's ugly, it's raw, it's hard, and I just don't think it's healthy. I would love for more families to be able to hold on to their elderly loved ones and be able to keep them with them until the end. I fully plan on keeping my parents. We have lots of Alzheimer's in my family, and I'm sure at some point one of my love you, mom and dad. I'm sure at some point one of them would get it, and I would like to be able to modify my home so they could just stay home with me because I would much
Yeah.
rather, stick it through with them. There's lots of elderly abuse in the nursing homes, and I would never want to subject my parents to that either. I'd rather that I just knew without a shadow of a doubt they were taken care of.
And that does go a long way. I feel that safety and comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like they deserve that, after all the years that they put into to keeping me alive. And my grandfather passed from Alzheimer's, and my Nana kept him the entire time. It was very hard on her, but I feel she did the right thing, keeping him. And honestly, I hope that I'm in a place where I can take care of her in my own home. We'd have to make modifications here too, and I haven't spoke to my husband about that yet, but
Yeah, with time.
yeah, I really, it's something that's important to me, and I don't like that everything is just so negative when it is natural. It is a part of life. Now, I know it's not necessarily natural when parents are burying our kids, but that's different because, with my grandfather, that's the natural order. Your grandparents are supposed to pass first and then your parents and then you.
Yeah.
You're not really, I'm not saying that it's, okay for our children to pass, but
It never is okay for to lose out on something like that because my wife, her grandparents had to bury both their children before their time, so it's hard to see somebody lose someone of them whenever it's not their time.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Hey, that's life, That's the one thing that we kind of go through and we see
Mm.
So can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very good home. I had a wonderful upbringing. I didn't suffer there was nothing crazy that happened. The first time I experienced loss, I was 13 and my dog died. She got hit by a car. I was actually at the marching down in Canton with you.
Okay.
We were in middle school.
Here in downtown Canton?
Yep, yep.
Probably Christmas parade, something like that.
No, it
Or
was the Halloween. We did a Halloween
Halloween, okay.
parade that year. But she got ran over and passed away, and she was pregnant with puppies. It was very
Oh.
I just convinced my parents to let me keep one of them, but she just there was no way she could have made it. So that was really rough. But I knew, I'm like, it's okay because she lived a very good life, and I came to terms with it. I mean, it's hard. I still miss her. Like, every Halloween that comes around, I think about her. I mean, I think about her more than just on Halloween. Yeah, I think everybody has that one dog that they
Oh,
have
yeah.
in their lifetime, and she was that for me. So I really miss her. And then after she passed, a few years later, my grandfather passed away, and that was really rough. But I had a peace with that because he told me that he had Alzheimer's. He told me to just love him through it and laugh at whatever shenanigans he had going on. And so we had a very good conversation before he got really bad. So he was my hockey coach for a little while, and I remember
Oh, I
him
forgot
yelling
that
at
you
me.
played. I forgot about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I played hockey. And a lot of my father's Canadian, and a lot of my aunts and uncles, and they're all Canadian, and so it's almost like a rite of passage in the family, I feel like.
Yeah.
We all ski, like
Yeah, I
snow
remember you
ski.
going up and doing a lot of the skiing, going up to Canada and skiing almost every year.
Yes, yep.
I remember
And
that.
I've not been able to bring my children to Canada to ski yet. They visited Canada, but not during the wintertime. I have took them to North Carolina a few times to ski.
Horseshoe in
We
Appalachia?
No, we went to, what is it called? Maggie Valley.
Okay.
Yep. So
That one I haven't gone to.
it's small, but I mean, it gets the job done. All
That's all
my
that
kids have
matters.
learned to ski there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was wonderful. So my grandfather would yell at me. He'd be like, Heather, where's the pucks? And I'm like, well, you're the coach. Like, why do I? And that's when I realized, I'm like, oh, wait, like there's something off here,
Yeah.
and he would just forget things. And finally I was like, hey, like, what's going on? And he's like, well, he's had Alzheimer's for a very long time. And he was 67 when he passed. And that was really rough, but he came to me in lots of dreams that I've had. And it I don't want to say that dreams are like us healing ourselves, because I don't know as fact, but I know for me, I found comfort in just talking with him.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
yeah, and I talked to my Nana, and she said that she has dreams about him too. Because he's been gone for, gosh, so I'll be 35 tomorrow, and he passed when I was 16. So how many years is that, Cade? I'm awful at math.
16 and 34, you would have 18 years.
Okay, yeah, so he's been gone for 18 years now.
Well, 19 tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you want to look after your birthday.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. So it's been a while, but I still think of him very often, and he heavily influenced my life. He taught me how to swim the proper way. My father just threw us in, like he
You
just threw me in the
survived.
river.
Yeah, you survived.
Yeah, and he's like, figure it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, my grandfather's like, you can't doggy paddle, and I'm like, well, why not? And he goes, because you're not.
We're going to fix this.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah.
no.
So, and he would have me with roller skating. Like, we'd go to the skating rink, and he goes, you need to skate as fast as you can, and then just stop immediately. And I hit the
Ooh.
wall every time.
Ooh.
Every time. And he's
Ooh.
like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know.
Figuring
Like,
it
I
out.
can't stop like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So I remember one time he told me that I had to put my skates on and run up a hill with my skates on. And
Ooh.
I flopped, and I sat at the bottom of the hill, and I was so angry. I just started crying, and he was like, get up. He's like, you're my
You're gonna do
granddaughter.
this.
You're not doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but my legs hurt and I can't. And he's like, I don't want to hear I can't. You can. And he pushed me, and I became a much better player because of, yeah, lots of tough love there. But anyway, but when he passed, I cried a lot. I was very sad. But with Alzheimer's, it's a very long, drawn out process, right? So you have time to come to terms with what's happening.
Yeah.
And I talked with my grandmother about this too, and she said the same thing. She said that she misses him terribly, but because it wasn't just all of a sudden, we saw it over the course of many, many years, and she, at that point, just wanted him to not suffer anymore.
That's hard to
So, yeah, it was just kinda what I did exactly what he said, I just loved him through it. But those are the 2 real losses that I had when I was young. And then fast forward to me being older, I was pregnant. So I have my 4 boys. Isaac's 12, Jordan is 9, TJ, which is Thomas Jr., he would be 5, and then my youngest, John Henry, just turned 1 2 days ago. So while I was pregnant with TJ, my dog that I had for 14 years, my collie. Yeah, I think you remember her,
I do.
Katie.
I do.
So she passed away, and that was rough because she's older, and when you have the large breed dogs, they very rarely reach that age. So I had to take her in and I had her put down because she couldn't get up anymore. And that was hard, and I was trying to bury her in the yard, and I'm pregnant, big belly at this point, trying to, use a shovel, and I just sat down and cried. I'm like, "I can't even bury my dog." And then one of my really good friends passed away. She passed away as a result of alcoholism, and that was really rough too. I had lots of anger towards her over that, and my last text to her actually before she passed was that if she doesn't stop drinking, she's going to die. And we had kind of a fight about that, and turns out I was right. I'm not happy that I was right about that.
No, we're
but
never happy to be happy about
yeah,
that.
yeah, it was very hard. And I find too, and I know that everyone's beliefs are different, and that's okay. I don't expect everyone to believe what I do. But I had several conversations with her about the afterlife, and she was convinced that there was nothing. And that was hard too because, like, I would really love to be able to see her again, but she was dead set on nothing, so I don't really know how that's gonna work out. I just know that I miss her. So that was the second rough thing within because this was all within the course of, like, 9 months that all these deaths
Oh
occurred.
gosh, that is so
So
tied
then
together.
yeah, then my son passed away, so he was the real reason that I would say that we're in this podcast is I wanted to talk to people about his loss. So I was pregnant with him, my 3rd oldest, and he had what was called a diaphragmatic hernia. Typically, those are visible on ultrasounds, and they perform a surgery right after they're born. Sometimes they can even do it in utero, where they just add a couple stitches to, close that hole.
Mhm.
Well, his was so small that it was not visible on any ultrasound. So I gave birth, and I don't have medicine, like I don't use epidurals or anything like that. So when I gave birth, I didn't think anything was wrong. When you do all the hippy dippy stuff, you're like of the assumption like, okay, I've done everything as natural as possible. We're gonna be
Yeah.
good. Well, when he was born, he was not breathing correctly, which it makes sense because if your inside is scrambled eggs, you're not going to be able to breathe. So he it was a I didn't realize the magnitude of what was happening at the time because after you give birth, especially when you don't have epidurals, you're not medicated, it's a rough recovery. I was just like, man, I need a drink of water. Like, I'm hungry. I'm like, I want my baby, and they handed him to me. And I'm like, yeah, this is off. Cause after you have a couple kids, you can kind of tell too,
Yes.
it's, when something's off. And they were like, well, he needs TLC. And I'm just, there's lots of emotions going on. I remember giving him some kisses, and then they handed him to his dad, my husband. And Tommy was like saying the same thing, like there's
Something's not right.
something's off.
Something's off. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, the hospital that we were in doesn't have the ability to really take care of newborns. I probably can't disclose the name of that hospital, but if anybody wants to know what it is, they can find me through you and I can talk
Okay.
about it. But my wise words in this situation is always go to either Atlanta or Kennestone. Always check your NICU level because you never know what's going to happen. We almost did a home birth because I had already
wow.
had 2 other children that were unassisted births, and I was a candidate for a home birth. Met all the criteria. Everything was fine. All my appointments came out good. Like blood work was fine. So I also advise nobody to do a home birth because if he would have passed away at home, I would have felt even worse than I do now.
Mhm.
And I love doing, like, I'm a crunchy mom is what they call, like, lots of holistic stuff. But all that to be said, modern medicine definitely has its time and place. And although nobody likes hospitals, you need to be giving birth where there is medical assistance available in the event of something like this that happens. So anyway, he didn't make it, unfortunately. They sent a ambulance from Atlanta and a helicopter from Chattanooga to try to get to him, but he was gone within just a few minutes. And my grieving process with him, I mean, they say grief comes in waves, right? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, like, when the people came to take him to the morgue, and I struggled with letting him leave, and that was rough too because they wanted to give me time with him, but when you have a new little baby, the breakdown process happens fast. I'll just spare everybody the rough details. So I felt like I was robbed of the little bit of time that I could have had to, like, have with him. But I mean, at the same time, it's, they needed to take him. So anyway, the doctors ran from me too, which really upset me. Rather than ask me if I'm okay or whatnot. The doctor, her name was Dr. Heather something. I don't remember what her last name was. I just know her first name because it's my name.
Memories that sticking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a nurse in particular that came to me and she said, "You do need to take photos with him. I know this is hard, but you need to do this because you're going to regret it if you don't." Because I guess she worked with people who had lost before. I don't remember the entire conversation, but she told me that I needed to do this. So we did take a few pictures before he got, really discolored. And I still have them. And I'm super grateful to her. So I don't even know if she'd ever listened to this
You
podcast,
never
but
know in the world finding things. You never
yeah,
can tell.
but she really was like saved the day for me because my husband was like, "I don't want any of these," which I understand his position on that too. It's rough. Like, you don't necessarily want to look back at all the sadness, but I needed it for me. So that's what I
True.
told him. I need this for me, and that goes into the whole everyone grieves differently. So I just told him, I won't print these. I won't put them off anywhere or put them up anywhere until, you give me the okay, out of respect for him.
Yes.
So I just hold on to them for myself. So we left the hospital to come home, and I was super dysfunctional, right? Like, we have an auto lock on our bedroom door, and I came out, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure the kids were okay, the other kids were fine. And I remember my mother saying that she didn't appreciate me having that auto lock because as soon as I would go back into my room, I was shutting her and everyone else out. And originally we had the lock put on the door because the kids never knock, you know?
You need your privacy.
And yeah, so because I didn't want to have to always think like, oh my gosh, are my kids walking in my door? Oh my gosh, like, the same thing with like the dogs and the cats. They would like put their paw in the door crack and like get it to open before
Yeah.
we had the lock on it. So I'm like, we need to get this done. So anyway, she got really upset about that, and I just told her, I said, "Mom, I cannot handle, like, I just needed to be alone, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have anybody around me. I just wanted to pretty much suffer in my own silence." So my husband, he was very helpful as well. And I know that men and women grieve differently, and I had some anger towards him because I felt like he wasn't showing any type of emotion about anything, right? I would be like scream crying, and he would just be like, "Well, we need to make dinner." And I'm like,
Can't
I
do it.
can't
Yeah.
like I can't do anything. There was times where I'd be laying in the bathtub with the shower on, and it would just run cold, and I would fall asleep like just from crying. And he had discussed putting me in a facility because I was just struggling so bad. And there was one day where he legit picked me up and he looked at me and he was like, "You have to do something different. You need to get better. I don't care if you talk to somebody, you need to get medication. We need to do something.
Yeah, some kind of therapy of some
And
way. Yeah.
and I was just like, I can't. I can't do anything. And I tried joining I tried joining a loss group, and it did not help me at all. And I that made me worse, I would say, because even on the days that I would have, like, a few good minutes, I would get into the group, and it was just so much sadness. I was like, "I
Can't do
can't be
it.
around
Yeah.
this, like, this is gonna continue to pull me down." I'm like, "I need to find a different group, like, maybe I can find, like, a mom's group or something." And then I was like, "Well, I don't really feel like I fit in with these moms groups either," you know? I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't figure out where c and I feel like mentally, I'm a lot younger than 34. Mentally, I think my thought process. I mean, I know, like, yes, I work a full-time job, yes, I'm in school, yes, I'm mom, to all these kids. I don't feel like I think like an older person, I don't know. So, but I was trying to do the mom group thing, and then I just felt like an outcast. So, I couldn't really fit into anything, and I tried talking to a therapist, and that went south real fast too. So, the therapist that I had said to me that she got into that line of work because her father had passed away, and she said to me right after that, she goes, "And I was you're doing way better than I was." And in my mind, I was like, "You suck, first of all." Cuz I am really good at masking when I'm having a problem. Like, I can project whatever feeling I want, just to the general public. And I know better than to say that to anyone because, again, everyone grieves differently.
True.
There's no
Smart.
measurement. You can't say, "Oh gosh, like so and so's son passed away or this person's mom passed away and like they must feel this way or I'm way sadder, I'm more upset. I stopped eating whatever." Like you can't because everything is relative also. It's so for her to say that to me, I'm like, I don't think you paid attention either in school or you're just stuck at your job. But like you,
You don't see what's going on behind
yeah.
these
So
walls.
I was
Yeah.
like, I stopped her and I was like, I don't need to be therapized by you. I'm going to go a different
Somebody
route.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and I thought about going to someone else. And then I was like, I have to find happiness within myself. Right. That's what I came to the conclusion of.
Yeah.
So, but Tommy got in my face. He was like, because it was one of my other really bad days where I just was laying in the bed crying, and he goes, "What are you accomplishing?" And I was like, "Why does it matter?" he goes, "We still have." At the time, we still had 5 kids. He goes, "We still have 5 living children that need you."
Yeah.
And he goes, "You are doing them a disservice by not being mom. You're not being present for what they need you for." And I was like, "Okay." And I kept crying, and I eventually came off of it. Like, he brought me food because food is like the weight of my heart.
There you go. Comfort. We all have our
So,
comforts.
yeah, I gained a lot of weight during that time, unfortunately, but he brought me some food and I stopped crying. And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Like, I have to do, it's not fair. I'm robbing my children of their mother, grieving over what he's not here anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And it's hard to think about, oh God, like they're not here. But my other children are present, and I ended up being their basketball coach.
Nice. Awesome.
So,
With any basketball experience at all?
yes, I played in 3rd grade.
Okay. There you go.
So, my first line of trying to cope with all the with all the loss that I had was, I'm going to do everything all the time, right? I'm just gonna keep myself stupid busy. Because I ended up quitting my job. I was doing water testing, when TJ passed away, and I went back to work 2 weeks after he passed, and I just was super dysfunctional, and so I went from, like, a shutdown mode to overdrive. So I went from doing
You went from
nothing.
0 to 100.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I've not really looked back, and it's been good for me staying busy because I've noticed that in the quiet moments when nothing's happening, I can feel my brain slipping and it goes to very dark corners and it's not good,
I know
right?
that
So,
feeling. That's something that I face with. I constantly keep
yes.
myself busy, which is the podcast for me. It keeps me busy at a lot of
And
stuff.
that's wonderful. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you found your thing, right? My thing is the kids, building houses, flipping houses,
Oh, there's a
being in
lot more, but this is
school.
one of the
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Like, I know you've got more than just the
Yeah.
podcast, but like I have multiple things too.
Yeah.
And it's
We have to
just,
keep ourselves going.
yes.
It's a very peaceful thing.
Yes.
It
It's
seems like it's a
peace in
lot,
the
but it's peaceful.
chaos. Yeah.
Exactly. There you
Peaceful in the
go.
chaos.
Peace in the chaos.
Um,
Love that term.
so but I was hit with some more brick walls in my journey because after TJ passed, I was coaching the basketball team and I'm like, I'm just going to do everything for my kids that are here. I'm going to be, present. I went and had lunch with them. I would like every other week I was having lunch with one of the other kids. Like I would just rotate through them all. And I've been room mom for the kids. I think for all my kids, like every school year, I sign up to be room mom.
Man, I need some more parents like you coming through my classroom helping out
Yeah.
sometimes.
I'm like, here, we need to do snacks. I'm going to work the Christmas party. Like, I'll do whatever it is that y'all need. And I do think that I mean, it's been really good for the kids. It
Yeah.
has, because they know they can always count on me to be present. And I love that I have a close bond, not only with my biological children, but with my bonus girls, because step parents have a very bad reputation of being abusive or mean or just evil. And I'm not like that, because I mean, Kimber was, so she's my middle bonus girl. She was on my basketball team as well
Love
when
it.
I was coaching. Yeah.
Love it.
So, but unfortunately, the end of the basketball season, I ended up having to have an emergency surgery, which I had to turn the team over to one of the other dads to finish the rest of the year, which made me sad, but I had to step down. So after my dealing with my son's death, I had a very traumatic miscarriage. And it wasn't just miscarriages are really rough in general, right? It's loss is a loss. But I had the miscarriage on top of this pregnancy was in the corner of my uterus, right? So it's called a cornual wedge resection is what the doctor called it. Now, when I went into the office initially, they had said typically they do hysterectomies for this, right?
Oh,
And
man.
I started screaming.
Yeah.
Like I screamed in the doctor's face.
Oh, wow.
I laugh now. It was not funny then. She grabbed me and she was like, "You have to stop screaming." And I'm like, "I can't." And she was like, "I'm going to get you some medication." So she gave me, we tried Ativan, we tried Xanax. She prescribed me antidepressants. And I just looked at the bottle. I tried the Ativan. I did, and it didn't do anything. I kept upping my own dose. Like I would just take more at a time,
Oh, gosh.
trying to get like, it wouldn't fix it.
Yeah.
It would not fix I found no peace, nothing. The only thing that I could take was a muscle relaxer because I would have episodes where there were panic attacks and I would just be laying on the floor screaming.
Yeah.
Right. And I could not handle anything. And I would think that I was fine, but then something would trigger me. Like, I want to say it was either Father's Day, Mother's Day, someone's birthday. I don't remember, but just there were events that would occur and I could not handle it. And it was always as the sun was going down. So I'd be okay during the entire day.
But then once the sun hits.
And then and then it's almost kind of like once the calm and quiet sets in, that's where I was like, oh
where it was
no, like
at.
it's going down.
Yeah.
So I would try to get into like a bathtub or a shower or like find something that would help me because nothing else would. So the doctor gave me muscle relaxers that I did rely on, and I'm not proud of that, but I had to do what I had to do. I mean, it's legal. They were prescribed for me. So
Yeah.
the muscle relaxers would just knock me out. But the Ativan and Xanax did nothing. And I've never heard of anybody taking those things and them not working. So I know I was pretty bad off.
Each way of our bodies react differently to medications and the processes. And what was going on mentally too at that time is how your body's going to react as well.
Yeah. My
And
body was just like, F
not
this
having it.
Xanax.
Yeah,
You
not
can't do
having
it.
it. Yeah.
But And I did skip something. So in between there, after my son TJ passed, my grandmother died 2 months after that. My Mima, my mother's mother. And I went to go see her, and I thought that I was okay because I was going to say my goodbyes. It was right before she died. And the oxygen mask was on her face. And I remember going in to see her in the hospital, and I had a flashback of my son because when they brought him
Oh
back to
gosh,
me, the
yeah.
imprint of the mask was on his face. And that's, part of that PTSD.
Yep. Know that
And
very well.
but I took it like a champ, and I just loved on her. I hugged her. I helped her brush her teeth. And I just put it in my back pocket. I was
Yep.
like, I'm going to revisit this later. Well,
That's
I
extremely
definitely
strong.
revisited it later
Yeah.
because we went out to dinner at our favorite restaurant up there. This is up in Massachusetts, and I could feel the twinge in my back starting before the panic attack came on. And I looked at my mom and I said, we got to go like now. And I end up screaming in her backseat, and my mom's like, "I need you to calm down." I'm like, "I can't.
I'm
Like, I
trying. Yeah,
cannot.
exactly.
There's no calming down here."
You can't bring it down sometimes. It's
Yeah.
hard.
And so I was like, "I need the bathtub." And my mom, God bless her, I was laying in my grandma's bathtub screaming, butt naked, and she's hosing me down to this water, and she's screaming because she's like, "I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Mom, I'm so sorry." But anyway, so I'm still thankful that I was able to go up and say my goodbyes to my grandmother.
That's amazing.
It's a lot. Like I think that my mental health was deteriorating my physical body, and I had to get a grip on it.
And that's
So
hard. That's extremely
yes.
hard.
So but when my miscarriage happened, I was just like, great. Now I've lost 2 kids because it was 4 months. They were 4 months apart. And I've lost 2 children within the same year. My grandmother's passed. My dog passed. One of my close friends is gone. I felt like my world was crashing down around me.
That's a lot for anyone
And
to handle. Even
yes,
one, just handling one of them.
yes, yeah. So I understand why my body was freaking out, or why my brain was freaking out the way that it was. But so when you have, I guess, a miscarriage of certain, like, that meets certain credentials, they can't do DNCs on you, right? Which
What
is
is
a
DNC?
DNC is where the doctors go in and they just kind of clean out whatever's left
Okay.
after you lose your baby. So they said they couldn't do that for me because if you start like scraping or cutting corners, because this was in the right corner of my uterus, you can hemorrhage and die. So
Oh,
I was like, well, that
okay.
doesn't sound like a good,
Yeah,
like a good idea.
that
So
definitely.
what else can we do? So she goes, well, historically in the history books, because none of the doctors in that practice had ever seen, they've read about these things in books, but not experienced in real
Oh, wow.
life. So that stressed me out. But she goes, we're going to do a round of methotrexate, which is a form of chemotherapy. So I went to the hospital. They gave me a nice shot of that. And my body would not release the tissue of what was left of the baby, right?
Oh gosh.
So I had to keep going in for ultrasound. So they told me, they were like, the tissue is still there. Your tube is plugged up in that corner. We're going to try another round. So I went back 2 weeks after to get another round of the methotrexate. And she goes, Heather, the amount of fluid that's building up behind here, if this bursts, it can kill you as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
she goes, you
Wow.
have to go in for surgery. So cue me screaming again.
Yeah.
For this poor
Yeah.
doctor. She grabbed me that time. She hugged me. She goes, listen, she goes, I need you to sit down. You're going to be okay. She goes, I don't know if you're going to make it out of this with your uterus or not, but you need to calm down. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And of course, when someone tells you to calm down, like,
That's
you
one of
just
the hardest
scream
things.
more.
Yeah, exactly. Don't
So,
tell me to calm down.
God bless this
Yeah.
doctor and everybody that was in there, because everyone knew what was happening with me. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to the hospital, and so it happened that her and her best friend also worked in the practice. I don't want to give out their names either, because I don't know how that works. But
If they want to reach out to be able to contact with you in some way,
okay,
we'll have that
yeah.
there.
So I'll call her Dr. G. So Dr. G actually delivered my oldest son Isaac 12 years ago, and she's wonderful. So both these wonderful ladies were besties working in the same practice, and she goes, I'm going to bring her in while we're doing surgery, so that, because she goes, I fully trust her, and we're going to do this together. And I said, whatever you need to do, do it. Like, just
Yeah.
I would really like if you could save my uterus because, after going through that type of loss, I was like, I don't know what if I want to try to have another child
Exactly.
down the road,
Yeah.
So you never really know how these things work. And so we went into surgery, and I remember just sitting there with like a sad face going they put the IV in me, and they were like, count down from 10, and I think I got to like 7. But I was just like with this super sad frown the whole time. And one of the nurses, she was like, do you need a hug? And I was like, yes.
Yes, please.
So,
Yeah.
and then I came out of surgery, and the doctor comes up to me, and I started crying because it hurt. Like, it hurt really bad.
Oh gosh.
And I started crying, but then I had to stop crying because when you cry, it hurts worse,
Yeah,
right? So
true.
I was just sitting there with a sad face again.
Oh.
And she comes up to me and she goes, great news. She goes, you kept your uterus. Everything went great. Like, and you could tell she was so
Yay.
proud of herself
Yeah.
too. And I was like, thank you so much. And she was like, you want to cry, don't you? And I was like, yes, but I can't. I can't.
I know if I do, it's gonna be really bad.
Yeah. And she took pictures of, which this is probably, it's probably kind of gross to most people, but she took pictures of what was left of the baby.
Oh, the tissues and stuff.
And she showed me,
Yay.
but I find that comforting that I got to see. And I know that I'm probably weird also, but with my background working in, science field, I find those things fascinating. So I was really happy that she showed me.
That is really cool.
And then she showed me how she stitched my uterus back together, and it just blew my mind, and I have
Medical
done
technology today is so neat. It's fascinating.
yes. And she goes, Heather, by all means, I think that you should be able to have more kids if you decide to. And, we'll just see how this goes. And I was like, I don't even know if I want more, like I am
But
so
you have the option at this
yes,
time. That
yes.
is
But
great.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative that you are able to do this, and she just blew my mind. So then I continued to use my coping where I was doing more with my kids that are here now. Like, living in the moment was a big thing for me too. Just appreciating what we have in this moment
Amen,
because you
yes.
don't know what's guaranteed next. And I had to shift my mindset to not being sad every day. Like, you choose happiness. You don't want to wake up and just be sad, because I do. I relive my trauma every morning. Excuse me. Every morning whenever I first wake up, I remember that I have another son, that he's not here with me, but it's okay because it has to be okay. I don't get to decide what happens. Like, for a long time, I felt like I could control my entire life, and that's not how that works. We can try,
True. Yeah.
you can, you make decisions like, okay, I'm not going to drink and drive. Like, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's not tempt fate, but we don't get to ultimately choose like, okay, like I'm going to make it to where my son didn't have a hernia. Like, I wish that I control over that, but I don't. So I have to be okay for myself and for my other kids. And I still love him. It's just, it has to be different for right now. So I went on to have 2 more miscarriages after that one, right? And it sucked. I actually didn't even tell my husband. I was just like, I'm not
You went through
I'm
that
just gonna
alone.
deal with
Oh
this
my
on my
gosh.
own. Yeah. And I'm like, it sucks. I was very sad over it. But I continue, like, you just have to have the mentality of there's things that we cannot control. And you have to accept that it's okay that we can't control these things. So I was like, well, I guess I can't have more kids. Like, maybe that's a thing. And then I joined some groups with women who had issues with miscarriages, right? But that didn't fit me either because my son died, who was a full-term child, right? I did suffer the miscarriage loss, but all the women in this group were women that didn't have any kids at all, right?
Oh, okay.
So I was like,
Gotcha. So it's different.
I felt terrible
Yeah.
even being in there because I still had all my 5 kids, 2 of which are my biological children.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't have these conversations because I just look like that's how I felt talking to them because they were just so distraught over not even being able to have one child.
Yeah,
I just felt like it
entirely.
was not my place to be in there. So I left that group too. So I suffered on my own, but it was again like every day I just had to choose to be happy. And when we were talking about big pharma and all that, I stopped taking the Xanax and Ativan within weeks after they tried to put me on it. I never I never took any of the, I think it was like Zoloft or something that she was trying to give me. I looked at that bottle and I threw it in the trash because I was like, I don't want to become chemically dependent on anything. And I wanted to figure out on my own how to make myself be okay. And I've just have had that mentality really the entire time. Ever since my husband picked me up and was like, you need to be present for the kids. Like that was my
That was the
turning.
game changer.
Yes. And because he's right. He was 100% right. And my kids did suffer during the time that I was dysfunctional. And I apologize to them for it. And it's hard too, because when you're a kid, the things that your parents do weigh heavily on you. I remember my dad my dad told me a lie, and it was something that I knew was a lie, right? But because he said the opposite, I just believed him, even though I knew, and
Yeah.
it wasn't even anything big. It's just like what your parents tell you, just the things that your mom and dad does just when you're a kid are just so much. And I knew that like me in the bed screaming was traumatic for them. So I just had to tell them, I am very sorry. Parents are not perfect. We do what we can, but I was in a bad way. But I did tell the kids too, I'm like, I need you guys to just love me through this because I don't know what I'm doing. There's
Yeah,
no handbook
there's
for
no handbook.
parenting.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing with any of it. It's you're
Yeah.
all
So
trying as you're going. Trial by
they
fire.
they would come. I remember Elena and Isaac specifically. Elena would come in. She's 17 now. She would come in and sit with me in my room, and she would just like hug me and pet on me. Like she would play with my hair and be like, I love you so much. And
Aw.
Isaac would read his little children's Bible to me, and that was super helpful too. Just having like the comfort of the kids.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember Kimber was like, I'm gonna make you breakfast. And like she'd be in there like making me eggs and stuff. And Jordan and Ryan were really too little, I think, to fully comprehend what was going on. But yeah, so the older kids definitely tried in their own ways to help. And I'm very appreciative of them. And they actually didn't know that I miscarried at all. I told them that I had some fibroids that I had to get taken care of because I was just so I was so I don't I was embarrassed, honestly. I was embarrassed that I had lost my son. I was embarrassed that I had miscarried because as a woman, for me anyway, I found a lot of my identity in mothering and my ability to
Okay.
have kids. And that is not we don't need to find our self-worth in that. So I had to come to terms with my self-worth is in how I value myself, not in my ability of having
I
kids.
love it.
It's
Love
not
it.
in my it's not in my ability of, anything. It's just like I need to love myself for who I am. And I hope that more people are able to do that because I've got friends who have not been able to have children, and it is very mentally taxing. And it's almost like an expectation that if you're married, like, okay, you're going to have kids.
Yeah.
And that is not for everyone, and that's fine. It's obviously my husband and I we like can't stop having kids. But any of my friends who, whether you choose to not have kids or whether you just can't, that's fine. I wish that more women didn't feel like that's something that we have to do. So I came to terms with, okay, well, I'm just not going to be able to have any more. I'm done. Well, then fast forward a few years later and I found out I'm pregnant again. I didn't tell anybody that I was pregnant with John Henry. I didn't tell anybody for months. And by the time I told Tommy, I was like, "Hey."
Just to let you know.
And he was like, at first he was a little mad, and he was like, "How are we gonna feed another one?" And I was like, "I
But
don't
we'll figure it
know.
out.
I don't know." And we made it work, obviously. But by the time I told Tommy, I already knew that he was a boy. And so I was like, "Well, hey, like you get to have, another shot at, your family name and, all the stuff with, that comes with when dads have boys." And he kind of perked up whenever I, pitched that at him, and he was like, "Okay." He's like, "This is good. This is
Yeah.
good. We're going to be okay." And we waited a long time to tell the family too, cuz at this point I was like, "Well, like I don't want to say anything to anybody. Like this is just going to be our little secret until it's obvious." And I'm a big girl, right? So it well, I mean, I'm a big girl, but I couldn't hide the pregnancy for more than, a few months, because my belly already pokes out, but it was really poking out by this time. And it was like, okay, we know she's big, but she ain't that big.
Yeah.
So then we did an announcement, and we did a gender reveal the same day that we did our we told his parents the same day at the gender reveal that we were even having a child. So we invited all of our family
Two
over
for one
for
special.
lunch.
Yeah.
Yes, we invite everybody up for lunch at the lake, and I had the powder cannons. So they were like, "What?"
I love it.
So,
I love
yeah,
it.
and I had extra screenings done to make sure that John Henry did not have any, genetic issues.
Okay.
I went to the high-risk doctor the entire time. And yeah, so it was kind of scary, but I also had to choose to be happy the entire pregnancy too. So even though I didn't tell people, I had to make an effort to not live in fear, because I had no safe zone. Some people have told me that when they've miscarried, they're like, "Okay, well, once I make it past 8 weeks, I feel safe." Because
Yeah.
that's what the age that they miscarried. Or once I'm past 12 weeks, like that's when I'm safe. I had no safe zone because I had miscarried in the beginning, and then I lost a full term breathing child
Yeah.
also. So I'm like,
You-
there is no safe zone for me.
No.
So
It
I'm
is.
like, we're doing this, and but happiness 100% is a choice. When I went in to have him, because of all my surgery with the loss, I had to have a C-section with him. I've never had a C-section before. And
You're having all the surgeries, all
that
the stuff. You're
everyone was like, "Aren't you scared?" And I'm like, "Actually," so because I had been telling myself to choose happiness for so long, I
Yeah.
was like, "I'm just excited, honestly. I'm just so happy at the opportunity to be a mom again." And like, I just was ecstatic, and, like, when I was in, the pre-op, I was just sitting there with a big old smile on my face, and they're like, "Okay, this is weird."
This is odd, but
They're like,
okay.
"Are you
Yeah.
not scared?" I'm like, "Hell no." I'm
Yeah,
like,
let's
"I got this."
go.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like I'm like, "Let's get this done." Like, I just wanna eat some food. I had meals already planned. I walked into that hospital with bags on bags on bags of all like Jello and all kinds of stuff. Like, once you have one, a couple kids, like,
You know you're ready. You know what your
Yeah,
body
yeah. I was
wants,
like,
what
"We
it
got
needs.
sandwiches."
We going. We're good. We're gonna have the whole buffet lined out.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So we were super prepared, and the C-section was pretty wild because I started hemorrhaging during the
Oh
C-section,
gosh.
and I felt like my life leaving me, and it was very warm and happy and furry. I say furry, fuzzy. I didn't see any like white light or anything, but I did have to fight to like not fade out.
Yeah.
And that was pretty wild too. But it did give me comfort too, because as I was fading, I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel stressed.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, maybe when my son was passing, he didn't hurt. I was
Ah.
like, okay,
Okay.
like I
Okay.
can get down with this. Like maybe he just was like slowly go into the abyss, and it was, warm and happy. But rather when I was in surgery, I'm like, "Oh god, like I'm having a baby."
Yeah.
Like
I need to be back.
I need to
Yeah.
not leave right now. So obviously I made it. They gave me I got several blood transfusions. I think I had like 3 or 4. There was a lot.
Oh
There was a
wow.
lot of blood involved. So I made it, obviously, and I had them take John Henry to the NICU area because I was like, I want y'all to like examine him forwards,
Backwards,
backwards.
everything. Let's
Yeah,
go.
like
Whatever
all the
test it needs to be,
things.
let's do it.
Yes, all the things to make sure that he didn't have what TJ had because you never know. You know, it's luck
true.
of the draw. It's at some point like you don't know what's going to happen, and so I'm like, y'all are taking him. So I didn't get that initial skin to skin, but I was out of it anyway. Like I was like,
Yeah.
because I was getting the blood
You were getting all the blood
transfusions.
transfusions that was going on. Your body,
So
you were fighting to stay alive at this
yeah,
point. All right.
I couldn't hold him even if I wanted to, so it was fine. And so yeah, so now I'm kind of like I don't want to say I'm at the end of my happy story because, you know, again, we never know, you know, what could happen the next day or, you know, a week from now. But the ultimate secret to being able to not be on medication for me was choosing to be happy. You have to make an effort. And there's a distinct break in my life before he died versus after, because before he died, it was almost like ignorance is bliss. Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, true.
But after, every day I have to. And I have to do short-term goals that I work towards, long-term goals that I work towards. I always have to be working towards something and staying busy. It always has to be positive. Like, what good thing can I do today? All the good juju, the good vibes,
Yeah.
like
And that's a way of
just
honoring
being a
them
good
too.
person. Yes.
Yeah.
And I do find ways, like my girlfriend and I did photos for pets, and we donated all of the money that we did from the pet photos to the animal shelter up here and to Dr. Chester, he's the vet that we've used for the last 6 years. He's wonderful. We donated all the money to both of those organizations in the names of our boys because one of her sons died as well.
That's an amazing way to honor.
Yeah. So we just have to find little ways of staying happy and just enjoying living in the moment because the big picture is too painful sometimes to handle. And it's a slippery slope, you know, if you allow the dark corners of your mind to take over, it's easy to fall back into it. So it's a conscious decision to not.
Is there any like organizations or groups or things that you want to be able to like recommend for people? Rather just be like, hey, I recommend getting outside and vitamin D is your best friend.
Honestly, that's it. Actually, I did get my vitamin levels tested. It's funny you bring that up. And I did have a vitamin D deficiency. So, and once I got that straightened out, there was it's almost like I could feel my brain misfiring.
Okay.
You know, but that kind of goes back into if you don't give your body the tools for success, you know, you can't succeed. So if I'm not out in the sun long enough or not taking, because I take 50,000 IU a week, actually.
Wow.
My levels were stupid. My hair was falling out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's low.
Yes, it's very low. So yeah, so that's how I have been able to handle. And I did, so as far as grieving, I would sit outside and scream. I remember punching the dirt. I remember screaming into the ground, which I did a little bit of research, and I guess that lots of indigenous groups would be wailing outside, singing and crying into the earth, just like how I was. So it's kind of crazy to me that I did that without even realizing that that was a thing, but it helped. So
yeah, it's a way of grounding in a way, I guess. Using physically like the ground.
I literally grounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say literally. I physically grounded. Like
Yeah.
I was grabbing into it and walking around barefoot. I prayed a lot because I am very strong in my faith. So it's just it's everything combined, like being strong in your faith and the earth, being grounded in the earth. Yeah. And like I said, choosing happiness because every day is a new battle. But I want to enjoy the time that I have here versus being miserable.
Amen.
So, because at some point it's going to be my turn to go, and I'm totally fine with it. Like whenever
it is, it is.
I'm good. Yeah. So all y'all that are friends of me just know, like
you're gonna go down happy. You're fine.
I will be perfectly fine whenever that time is. But it's just happiness is a choice, and all of us have some type of trauma. No one makes it out of this. Well, nobody makes it out of here alive, for one.
Yeah, don't take that too seriously. You're never gonna make it out alive. I love that quote.
Yeah, and it's hard, you know, because we get caught up in work and, the mundane everyday struggles that we have, oh, I gotta go to the grocery store. Oh, I have to go get the oil changed in the car. Like you have to have a positive, happy outlook. Like, okay, I get to get the oil changed
I
because
get to,
yes,
yeah.
I have a car. So excited that I can drive where I need to go, like it may not be the car that I would, want ideally, but at
But it
least I
gets me
have
from point A to
one.
B.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can go and do what I wanna
Yep.
do.
Yep, that sort of thing. And it's just living every day in the moment. I know I've said that like a million times, but
No, but it's an
that's
important thing to drive it home. Saying it over and over again, it's a very important thing for people to realize.
yes. Yep.
Now, for those that have people that are going through, like, you had the support of your family and your friends and
Mhm.
your loved ones, what advice do you give for those that are supporting those that are going through grief?
So I will say what I did not want to be told was that everything happens for a reason. And I know that people mean well when they say that. The best thing that you can do for someone experiencing loss, in my opinion, okay, because I know that everybody's
Yeah, everyone
different.
has their own opinions for it.
Everyone is different. So I just want to disclaimer that is to just be present for them when they need it and be present for them when you think they don't need it. Checking in, just, hey, I love you.
I love
Honestly,
it.
that was the biggest that spoke the most volumes was, hey, I love you. Bringing food that's home cooked, frozen is a really good way of expressing love, which again, for me, I love food, right?
The way
But
to your heart.
it's very helpful to have meal options that are easy when you are dysfunctional or lost in sadness. It's
Yeah,
because at some point you have to eat. So
true.
having something available to you that you can just take out of the freezer is very helpful.
It
Um,
definitely goes a long way.
but the I love yous are huge, and I know, like, I had people send flowers. I had people, and you don't really know what to do. I mean, there was times where my husband and I didn't even know what to say to each other. We would just say nothing, which that's not necessarily a good thing. But as far as like friends and family being supportive, just being I love you and like I said, being present for when you think they need you and for when they don't, like, checking in is
That's
huge.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and actually my aunt came in well, it's my husband's aunt, came over and she cleaned my whole, like, kitchen, living room for me, and that was super sweet too.
That's
But
amazing.
I can't speak for everyone on that, like, I feel like that's probably less general because a lot of people probably don't want other people in their house, when they're going through, a hard time.
Yeah.
I just am very I don't know, I'm just very open and affectionate, so it was very helpful for me, and I have a bunch of kids.
So
So,
being able to have
yeah,
anything of that break goes a long way.
yeah. But mostly I think it's the I love yous, like, if you don't know what to say, just sending a message of, "Hey, I love you," or "I'm thinking about you," that goes a long way, and I say a message because it's hard with phone calls because if you're crying, like, you can't really talk.
True.
So and
True.
I didn't wanna talk, I didn't wanna talk to anybody, but
Yeah.
I got floods of messages and texts, and that was really nice to know. And also, like, when I say checking in after, like, checking in when you think it's not needed, because after the funeral happens and after everything calms down and people tend to go quiet and just, like, forget
Mhm.
but, like, you're still here lost, so you
Exactly.
need to continue to check in on those people.
I love it.
So I think that's the biggest thing.
Those are some great words of advice, but for sure that's something that we as a society, we are social creatures.
Yeah.
We need to have that connection with people.
Yeah.
And just being able to know that someone's thinking about you goes a long way. It really
Yes.
does.
And honestly, I think that it's made me experiencing the loss that I have has made me more conscious of what is going on with the people around me. Cause like I can kind of tell like if I don't want to say like I'm hypersensitive now, I guess. I've got several friends who will be acting off. So I check in with them more often now because I know like when you go silent, like is usually when you need people the most.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard, especially being I keep saying it's hard. Like life is hard.
Oh, yeah. Life's
Especially,
being
now
alive,
that we're
yeah.
older and it's more difficult to hang out with friends and your focus kind of shifts from, chilling with your besties to, okay, well, I got to make dinner. I got to get the kids in the bath. You're so busy doing work and your home life. You can't really, just chill with friends anymore.
It's true.
So but just reaching out goes a long way. Like I said, even with a text message. So,
I love it.
yeah.
Is there anything that maybe we haven't discussed that you want to bring up that we can discuss real quick? Or do you feel like you're feeling pretty good?
I think I covered everything.
Yeah. Is there any last minute words of wisdom or anything that you'd like to kind of throw out there?
Well, the bottom line is choosing happiness.
There we go.
That's
Choose
really my
happiness.
only. And don't. We were talking about an individual earlier who liked to lash out because of past trauma. And I know lots of people who they're just angry and they walk around with a chip on their shoulder because of what they've gone through. I've never been that way. And I feel like that it's a saying like hate breeds hate. If you walk around angry with all the bad juju, nothing good's going to come from it.
It's true.
And I'd rather positively impact those around me.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though I've suffered greatly, I want to have positivity only, like that saying good vibes only.
I like that.
I hear my kids say that all the time. They're like, you're too old. You can't say stuff like that. I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
This has been around since before you were around, my friend.
Yeah. So just, choosing happiness and all the good vibes and good juju. And that's all I got, I think.
Heather, thank you for coming on this evening and allowing me into your wonderful, beautiful home that you've got up here in Fairmount. It's phenomenal to be able to have that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me to be on your podcast.
And if anyone would like to be able to reach out, you can reach to me and I can be able to connect you in with Heather because I think that is the best way to be able to do so. And if you want to be able to reach out to me to be able to do that is I have an email, which is cade, C-A-D-E, at learningfromfriends.com. I have a Facebook page, Learning from Friends Podcast. There's an Instagram page, Twitter page, which is now X, and a LinkedIn page as well if you'd like to be able to reach out those ways, to be able to contact with me. If you'd like to make a donation to the podcast or purchase a t-shirt or merch of some form or fashion, I'm not sure what I have up by this point, but I know I have a t-shirt up. Patreon, it is Learning from Friends Podcast. And I would appreciate anything for that. But the one thing I do want to ask out of anything and everything is share this with friends, share this with loved ones, because the biggest way to be able to help each other is through communication and just love on each other, because that is what we have. The biggest gift that we can give someone is our time and our love. So with that, my friends, my name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends.
I do have
and
one more
most
thing.
of all, go for it. Go for it.
I thought of one more thing. I'm sorry. So I know that I laugh oftentimes when it's inappropriate. And in this interview, I laugh several times when it's not appropriate going through my trauma. That's another way how I handle dealing with not crying is I would rather try to laugh and make light of things as opposed to being sad and negative. And actually, the more I think about that, like Robin Williams combated his sadness with
laughter.
With laughter and comedy. So I hope
a lot
I don't
of great comedians do.
offend anybody with the situations that I was in by laughing, because I didn't know how else to deal with what I was going through. So
perfect.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or be offensive.
Thank you for coming in and giving us that.
Yeah.
Because I have several friends that do that, so I didn't even think about that at all. That's something that's
and I don't think about it much either, but reflecting back through the interview, I just don't want anyone to be upset with me. Like when I said, oh yeah, I miscarried again, haha, like I know it's not funny.
Yeah.
I know that's not funny, but it's like when you're out of options, like what do you do?
It's true.
You you have to cope somehow, and that's how. But I've tried to fight negativity with being positive. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Love it. You didn't interrupt me at all.
We're
going to close out here, my friends, with our ending statements and slogans and everything else that you want to throw out there for it. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide in this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And most of all, as you leave today, don't forget to let your curiosity fly high.